Solving absolute value equations. Recall when we think about the number line, absolute value of a number is its distance from 0. In words, the absolute value of 5 equals 5, since it is 5 units from 0 on the number line. Using symbols, the absolute value of -5 equals 5, because -5 is also 5 units from 0 on the number line. Now here's a definition. An equation that has one or more absolute value expressions is called an absolute value equation. Please note that these equations may have one solution, two solutions, or no solutions. So we'll get started. Let's solve this absolute value equation. The absolute value of x equals 5. Now we know that one solution is x equals 5, but there's a second solution, x equals -5. And to show that using a number line, both 5 and -5 are 5 units from 0. Therefore, the solution set to the equation, the absolute value of x equals 5, that symbol you see there is called a brace, -5 and 5. Let's try another equation. Solve the absolute value of x plus 3 equals 16. So what we want to think about is that there are two expressions inside that absolute value. If the value of one is 16, this will be a solution, and the value of the other could be -16. So in essence, we have two equations we're going to solve. And the two solutions then would be x equals 13 or x equals -19. Therefore, the solution set is -19 and 13. My convention that I follow is to usually write the negative solution first before the positive one. All right, so here's another example. This one is a little different. First, let's isolate the absolute value expression. So let's divide both sides by 5. And an equivalent equation is the absolute value of x equals 4. Therefore, there are two solutions, x equals 4 or x equals -4. So when that absolute value expression is not isolated, that is something we have to do first. So here, why don't you practice with this one, put the video on pause, and then come back and check. First, you would have divided both sides by 4. Now you would have said x minus 2 equals 20 or x minus 2 equals -20. You would have solved both of these equations. And we have two solutions, -18 or 22. Now there are some special cases when solving absolute value equations. Most of the time you'll get two solutions. Here's an example where there will not be two solutions. Solving the absolute value of x minus 6 minus 2 equals -2. Remember, first, isolate your absolute value expression by adding 2 to both sides. Now, the interesting thing here is we would typically write x minus 6 equals 0 or x minus 6 equals -0, but -0 is 0, right? So we can ignore the equation on the right and just focus on the one on the left. We have one solution to this equation. The solution is 6. So the equation on the right we're going to kind of ignore because -0 is 0. Here's another special case coming up. So I want you to look closely at that and ask the question, can the absolute value of a number ever be negative? No. By definition, the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0. Distance is not negative, therefore there is no solution. And in symbols we use this empty set symbol or the null set. Any of those three would be correct. You can say in words, no solution, empty set, or null set. Right, there'll be some multi-step absolute value equations to solve as well. Again, you always want to isolate that absolute value term. Let's subtract 3 from both sides. Let's multiply both sides by 5, and therefore the two solutions are x equals 75 or negative 75. And if you wanted to graph those solutions, a very simple number line would be fine, just with 75 and negative 75 as the solutions denoted in blue. All right, here's another multi-step equation. Always isolate the absolute value term first. Let's subtract 9 from both sides. So we know that 2x then can either equal 6 or 2x equals negative 6. We're going to divide by 2 to both sides, and our two solutions are negative 3 and 3. And so for our last slide, let's have a challenge problem for you where you can kind of put it all together. Why don't you put it on pause and then come back and check. First thing you would have done is added 8 to both sides. You would have divided both sides by 6. We know that that expression inside the absolute value can either equal 3 or negative 3. When we solve these equations, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. And x equals 0 is a valid solution. X equals negative 6 is another valid solution. There are two solutions, negative 6 and 0. So today, when we solved absolute value equations, we understand that often there'll be two solutions, like in this case. Sometimes there'll be one solution, and other times there'll be no solution to an absolute value equation.